everybody. Good afternoon. I am here to welcome you to Diversified and Virtual Gurus' very first International Women's Day Counter-In. Thank you so much for coming. It means the world to me that we're able to do this for everybody today. Woo! And I'm not going to sit up here and bore you. We're just going to get right into it. And we're going to do something, that I don't think we do often enough. We're going to start off the evening. I just wanted to introduce Danny Finch, who's coming up from Virtual Gurus. She's going to start us off with a land acknowledgement today. Followed by that land acknowledgement, we're going to have the amazing Shauna Morningbull and Kaylee Morningbull lead us in a prayer from the Blackfoot tribe. Thank you. Let's go.
Thank you, Heather. In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge and pay tribute to the fact that we are gathered here today in an important and sacred place within Treaty 7 and the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, including the Siksika, Piikani, Kainai First Nations, the Ayahe, Nakota, the Tsuut'ina, the Métis Region 3, and all people who make their homes in the Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta. Virtual Gurus is situated on land near where the Bow River meets the Elbow River, a site traditionally known as the Mohkinstsis to the Blackfoot, Wechispa to the Stoney Nakoda, and the Gutsitsi to the Tsuut'ina. On this land and in this place, we strive to learn together, walk together, and grow together. As participants gathered here today in the heart of this Treaty 7 territory, we acknowledge that we have ongoing responsibilities to protect and honor all of life within our shared territory as treaty people. Thank you.
Okay. Hello. Okay. This is my daughter, Callie Morningbull Ben. I just wanted to share with her on International Women's Day that last Tuesday she was in the opening ceremonies for the Special Olympics. I am so proud of her. So today we're going to do the Blackfoot prayer. And when we're done, I'll say Gamudan, and you just take the prayer and you just put it to your heart. So we'll start. Ayo is the batabiop. Ayo spomoginan. Creator, we just ask you to give us strength today and to bless us as your children as we walk into this world, and bless the people that are in our lives as they travel near and far, and give us a good evening this evening at this event, and bless everybody here. Gamudan.
Great. Okay, I think I will go ahead and kick things off. Thank you everyone for being here. My name is Debbie Fulton and I'm the Chief People Officer with Diversified, and I'm super excited to be here moderating this discussion with this wonderful panel of women in technology. Before we talk about their achievements and challenges, I'd like to reflect upon the journey of inclusion and diversity within the workplace. Inclusion is not just a buzzword. It's truly a cornerstone of corporate success. And as we reflect, we understand that listening to diverse voices and really hearing what people say is a touchstone of encouraging innovation, creativity, and success. So gender equality, which we will talk about today, is not just a moral imperative, it is a corporate strategy. And studies consistently show us that those companies that have diverse teams truly do outperform their competitors in terms of innovation and profitability. So this should lead us to the conclusion that not only is inclusivity the right thing to do, it's also the smart thing to do. So what can we learn from some of the companies that have been successful and truly embraced diversity and inclusion? And the first thing is we understand that it does start from the top. And whether you're a leader setting the tone and championing diversity or fostering a culture of inclusivity, our leaders are those that hold themselves and others accountable for ensuring that we're creating a work environment where everyone can thrive. So we know that it's important to invest in education and training, as well as putting a priority on diversity in both our hiring and recruiting practices as well as promotion. Because companies do recognize that if they do these things, that diverse teams are stronger and they are more equipped to solve very complex problems. But we, of course, can't forget the personal stories behind the corporate success, because it's women like these who have championed and have dedicated themselves to promoting diversity and inclusion in their workplace. And whether or not it's been challenging outdated stereotypes, advocating for inclusive policies, or mentoring the next generation of leaders, everything that we do has a positive rippling effect, not only within our organization, but within our communities and with everyone that we encounter every day. So I am very thrilled to introduce this panel of remarkable women who have made significant contributions to inclusivity and diversity within their corporate sector. Each one brings a unique and diverse perspective, so I encourage you to listen, ask questions, and join us in celebrating the power of diversity in transforming the workplace. So let's start our discussion with the current landscape of gender equality in the workplace. And Kelly, this question is going to be for you. What significant challenges or failures have you encountered during your career, particularly one where you felt your response was influenced by your gender or perspective as a woman?
Those of you who know me, including all the ex-Beneviteites in the room, know that I don't love public speaking, so the fact that I volunteered to go first is pretty amazing. You know, before I jump in and open up with a failure and really get this conversation rolling, just you led with, you know, gender equality. And I would say in the tech industry, the state of gender equality is not good. You know, depending what source you look at, you know, representation of women is still something like 26 to 28%. So shout out to Benevity, because we're 55% women, including 2/3 at the executive level. And I think on top of that, I think the standard that we hold women to generally is to achieve perfection. And so, you know, the bar is really high. We still, for the most part, get paid less. We work more hours. We do more at home and with our kids than most of our male counterparts. And I also believe we get criticized significantly more than men, and I've got many examples of that myself. So the bar is really high. And even knowing all of that, and with my own lived experience as a woman in tech, I still screw up sometimes. And so I offered up to share a failure with this group, and hopefully you'll have some takeaways from this. But about a year ago at Benevity, we were in the unfortunate position, like many tech companies, where we had to significantly downsize our team. So for us, it was about 18%, which meant that 180 of our then 1,000 people would be leaving the company. And as a company that's really diverse, of course, not just from a gender perspective, but visible minorities, a whole bunch of other perspectives, we, of course, were looking very closely at what did our mix look like before the layoffs, what would it look like after the layoffs, and the percentages weren't moving much. But really our methodology was flawed, because looking at a mix on 1,000 versus 820 people, of course it wasn't going to move much. What we didn't do until too late in the game is look at the 180 people that were leaving. And when we did that, it revealed you know, some things that we didn't really feel good about, to be honest. And it wasn't our intent. It was just one of these, you're doing 100 things to prepare for an event like that, and we just didn't look at the data correctly. So I think there's two lessons in here, not just in a situation in a layoff, which I hope you never have to do, but just day to day and operating your business. Don't just look at who's staying in your business, look at who's leaving, because that might actually tell you something about how good your DEI efforts or your inclusivity really is. And also, even when you're in a rush and you're under huge pressure, as we were in this example, you still have to apply that DEI lens to any decision that you're making, right? Particularly if you're making a decision about people, sometimes even if you're under pressure, you just have to stop and take a breath and go, okay, like, are we making sure we're doing the right thing here and we're looking at it in the right way?
Great. Thanks for sharing, Kelly. Bobby, Christine, would you have anything you'd like to contribute to that question?
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, I'm so honored. I'm like sandwiched by two powerhouses right now. So I'm really hoping, I'm so thankful there's like a video, so there's like proof. But at any rate, when I started, so right now I am in cybersecurity for Sony. And then on the side, I do an organization. I used to be president for Women in Technology, and I'm currently the chair for STEM for Her, which is an organization that focuses on middle school and high school girls, getting them into the STEM world. But when I was in college and I was, trying to look for different jobs, the companies that were hiring, they were hiring for us to prepare for Y2K. And so it was like the beginning of tech, beginning of websites. And I remembered the companies, like the big six firms, consulting firms, they had a strict dress code where women were not allowed to wear pantsuits, that you had to wear pantyhose and heels, everything. So my first job was a software engineer at a telecommunications company. I was one of two other girls in the room every day during our coding sessions. And I felt like I wasn't, besides the fact that I was new, I felt that my voice wasn't really being heard. So I started kind of dressing like the guys that were around me. I was wearing jeans. I wasn't even an Eagles fan, and I was wearing like an Eagles jersey. But I just felt like the more that I tried to dress like them, the more that I like took away my femininity, and that was like my authenticity. And because of that, I wasn't able to really work. I don't know, like I couldn't do my work correctly because I was trying to be someone else. So I guess the lesson here is really just embrace who you are, embrace your femininity, embrace everything that you are, because like it'd be unfair to the universe to erase what you were meant to give to the universe because you're just trying to fit in. Like you were meant to give something to the world. You have this special part, so embrace it and let the universe, just nurture it. And I guess that's just the lesson that I learned. And I'm not an Eagles fan, just so.
Oh, now I have to follow that. Okay, so I don't know if many of you know, but in 2016, when I first started Virtual Gurus, I didn't think I could actually do it. And I was sitting in my basement, coding by myself, basically throwing up a splash page, which to me at the time was like coding, but it wasn't. And I was doing everything on my own, and I didn't really realize that I didn't think I could do it. So I went and I hired a cis white male man to be the CEO of Virtual Gurus. And I was like, I can't do this, you got to do it. And so he jumped in. I took the back burner, he took it, and he actually took it in the wrong way. He didn't follow my vision. He didn't do anything that I was hoping for. He didn't follow the impact of me providing diverse jobs to anything. And so I had realized that there was nobody better to actually run the company than me, but I needed to get the guts and the confidence to take it back and take my power back. And so I ended up letting him go, and shit got messy. And that's when I realized, you know what, I have to do this. And, it was me. It was at that point in that day that I took it back that I said that there's nobody better, and I'm going to do this, and nobody else is going to do it but me. And you can't tell me I can't do it, because if there's anything that you don't want me to do, just tell me that, I can't do it, because I'm going to do it. And so I fought hard for that, and I ended up taking the whole entire company back, and now here we are. But that was one of my number one mistakes, for sure.
Great. Thank you for sharing. Being authentic, being yourself, very important. So, Christine, I'm going to direct this question towards you. What are the invisible walls that still exist for women in our industry?
Yeah. So I have to quote, I steal her quote all the time. So her name is Tony Towns-Whitley. She is currently the CEO now for SAIC. She also was a past Women in Technology president and is such a big advocate for STEM for her as well. So I've heard her speak many times. But I can tell you about the biases and everything, but the one big thing that I never really heard of before, but what she mentioned, is called sticky floors. And we hear all the time, you have these ceilings that women are trying to break, the glass ceiling, but no one ever talks about the sticky floor. So what is the sticky floor? It is the invisible and artificial things that women on their own create for themselves, and we believe in these doubts, and then we take ourselves out of the room. And it's kind of like what you said. It's like you weren't sure if you were going to do it. You're not sure. This person might be smarter than me. And then when we try to, if there's a job opening out there, women are like, oh, I have to be 200% qualified before I do anything. And then men are like, oh, what is it? I can do it. So it's like, it's sticky floors. It's a real thing. It's the doubts that we put in ourselves. And then it's the noise that we listen to that then we start to believe that it's real. So it's like, it's so sticky, we can never climb up to break that ceiling. So I think that's one of the things that she always talks about, that it's invisible, is the doubts that we really have to remove. And it's hard because we're always thinking of everyone else. Like at night, you're thinking about what am I going to make for breakfast tomorrow for the kids? What am I going to, how am I going to dress them? Da, 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 da. And you never really think about yourself, but and that's why I think we're going to talk about male allies later, but that's why that's so important, because we're always putting ourselves second usually, and we really need to make it a priority to, in order for us, again, to inspire the next gen. It's like believe in ourselves so that we can create that pathway and remove ourselves from that sticky floor.
I love that concept of sticky floor. It's something we don't often think about and turn upon ourselves into how are we limiting ourselves. So that was a great story. Thank you.
I've never heard the term sticky floor, but I'm gonna use that now. But
Yeah.
my own sticky floor was the first time that Benevity's founder CEO told me that he wanted me to be his successor. I responded like this. Like, I actually did this motion. It was like, man, don't look here. Like, look over there. That is 100% not me. Like, don't even get that in your head. It's never happening. And I think the reality is that we put a lot of this on ourselves. Like, I thought I couldn't be the CEO because I didn't want to be in the spotlight. I didn't want to be up on stage speaking. I didn't want to be out selling. Like, I didn't see myself as that external spokesperson, and so I just sort of took myself, out of the race, if you will. So that's a great example. I love it.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to be using that now.
Yeah.
To all my employees, watch out. Just kidding. It's amazing.
So let's talk about how mentorships and sponsorships can be used as a wrecking ball to break through some of those barriers and help women progress. And I'll open this to any of you that might like to comment on it.
I'm happy to go first.
Okay,
All right. I think, well, first of all, I think of mentorship and sponsorship as two very different things. I think of a mentor as someone's sharing knowledge, they're giving you guidance. I think of a sponsor as like they're kicking doors down for you. They are like advocating for you, advocating for your development, getting you in the right meetings, in the right rooms, and the right audiences. And so obviously both are important, but I think if we want to get more women into leadership roles, we need a lot more sponsorship. I happen to have had, two great examples of that in my career where, one CEO at a former company hired me to be CFO when I was 6 months pregnant with our first child. They did not know if I was going to come back, so that was quite like a leap of faith, and I know they had to fight really hard to get that through the board of directors at the time that had sort of obvious concerns. And then, The second example was at Benevity, where our founder was sort of, my biggest advocate for moving from the CFO to the CEO role, even though, a typical private equity-backed company, they want someone in the role who sort of has a track record and who's been there and done that before. And so I think it's really, really important. We actually, if you don't mind, I have another failure. You're going to think we don't know what we're doing at Benevity on this front, but it really, really actually bothers me to this day, and this happened 9 months ago. We had an engineering director position open up at Benevity, and we decided we were going to promote internally because we had a lot of great candidates. And so the final round, it was 3 women and 1 man, and the man got the role. And just to be clear, he was amazing. He wouldn't have got it otherwise. But what we learned after that was actually that he had like a mentor and a sponsor who was helping him to prep for the interviews, who was advocating for him with senior leadership. And the 3 women didn't have it. And I don't know now if it would have changed the result, but it's something that honestly I still think about, and it still bothers me, and it's just something that's really, really important for us to do.
Yeah, I love that. Some of my best mentors are men. And when I ended up taking my power back and really saying, hey, wait, this is imposter syndrome, and my struggles with running and being the CEO of Virtual Gurus when I knew I didn't have the experience, it came from the imposter syndrome. And I realized that I really needed to fight back, and I needed to say, hey, I got to do this. I got to take my power back. But how? One of my best mentors is Ryan Laley, who actually sits on my board now, and he mentors me fully every day. I call him sometimes 10, 11 at night. Hey, do you want to talk? He's like, I got like 3 kids and a wife. No, but okay. And the poor guy is just there for me constantly. And he's probably one of my biggest allies that has helped, and he's sponsored me. He showed me. He showed up for me. He is probably watching right now. Hi, Ryan. But he is there for me more than I could have anticipated. And in fact, he's probably not even going to come off my board because he wants to support me fully. And I think not only has this changed my life, but it's changed his life as being that person for me. So I think, we as women, and we need men allies, we need sponsorships, we need mentors. And, same with on your executive team. I have a few amazing males on my executive team. And they're huge sponsors. They're huge supporters of what I'm trying to do here. So much so that they've jumped on board fully, and they take a big hit, everything, financially, everything, just to be here to support me because they believe in my mission. And that's probably one of the most important things.
It's a great example. Kelly or Christine, would you have anything to share in terms of, really aligning yourself with male allies in the workplace to help you advance in your career?
Yeah, so as far as male allies, I kind of mentioned it where it's really important for them. It's great that we do have men here as well because whenever I say, oh, women in technology, it's like, oh. And it's like, no, it's we're just trying to raise women, and we want you to support us as well.
Yeah.
It's not, saying one or the other, and it's really just gaining, everyone supporting each other, basically, right? And so I don't know if I'm allowed to say his name, but I don't know, his name's, the name's up there for Diversified, but it's Matt Newfield, and he's the one actually that got me, we both worked at Verizon, and then he pulled me out of Verizon into IBM. And I don't know, everything that I needed from a women in technology perspective, I'm like, I just launched our podcast. I didn't even finish my sentence. He's like, what do you need? I'll do it. And then I mentioned that we needed to do, for STEM for Her. I really wanted also male representation in our advisory council. Same thing. It's like, hey, Matt, didn't even finish my question. He's like, I'm there, I'm for you. And those are the kind of support from men that we need. Even if it's not, we're not asking to take over your role. We're asking for you to support our role. And the more support that we gather, it's like we're amplifying our voices for the same mission of our companies, our organizations.
Wonderful. Love that.
Yeah, I shared my examples earlier of
You did.
great male allies, but I mean, without male allies, there is no gender equality.
Yep.
Because
Yep.
whether we like it or not, men still hold most positions of power, right? And so
Absolutely.
we need them.
Yeah.
Great.
Mm.
So let's shift a little bit and discuss some of the best practices for fostering an inclusive culture. And Bobby, I'm going to throw this one to you. With the rapid advancement of technology, what trends do you see that could revolutionize the way we foster inclusivity?
Yeah, I thought a lot about, one of the best ways to answer this question, but for me, it's about talent marketplaces. I say marketplace remote work agencies such as ours. You might have noticed now, like all over LinkedIn, all over, you're seeing marketplace, remote work agencies, everything. Now, so many people are fostering AI and machine learning to be able to take out the biases of hiring women, males, whatever gender diversity. And it's neat to see that because before I really wanted to implement that and I really wanted to bring that into what Virtual Gurus was because I've often been overlooked. They call me a trifecta. I'm indigenous, I'm queer, and I'm like fully tattooed, and I'm, all of it. So I check all the boxes. But it was so different back in the day when you walk in and you hand in a resume, they get to see that, and then you don't. You apply online and you got all of that. So apply online, and now it's like, yeah, you can't say no because of who I am anymore. Right. And so for me and for us here at Virtual Gurus, we're trying to foster that a little bit more in our onboarding with our talent. We're trying to say, hey, you know what, we're taking out all of this. We want to know and we want you to self-identify so that we can understand who is working on our platform and what are they so that we can actually go after and target that in the future and target that kind of talent. And, I just wish it was like that years ago, but it's amazing to see that it's happening now because now it's if my resume hits the bottom of the trash can, I at least won't see it, right? And I mean, yeah, so I think there's just so much things coming out right now, especially in the talent workplace platforms and AI and machine learning. It can open up so much right now.
Christine, Kelly, do you have any thoughts about the trends in technology and how they're helping to revolutionize inclusivity?
I don't know about like tech in general, but so I'm gonna try to tie this in. I wrote a lot of notes, so but I'm gonna try to tie this in. Like one of my favorite quotes is that it's like everyone wants to eat. No, yeah, everyone wants to eat, but not everyone wants to hunt. So I feel that yes, there's technology out there that will help with inclusivity, ERGs, et cetera, but your leadership, your executive level, they have to participate. They can't just say, hey, here, we're going to give you pizza. Here's a meeting. They need to be participatory, make the meeting meaningful, make the meeting impactful, and then they can use apps out there that can, data is key to everything, right, to making decisions. So if you're using data, an app to measure, the participant percentage and the demographics, everything for your ERG, you could see where there are gaps. You could see, how many people are actually participating, what is missing, and then you can perform tactically what a strategy could be to help that specific, demographic. And I don't know where she is. I had a really good conversation with Michelle from RBC. But so one of the things too, again, it's Tony Towns Whitley, but so don't quote me on this, but there's such a thing called the NASDAQ rule. And if you don't know what the NASDAQ rule is that if you're a company and you want to trade in NASDAQ, if you have more than 6 board members, out of those 6 board members, you have to have at least one person of color and one person that's female. And then if not, you're going to have to report that to the SEC. That's kind of like a form of where a company or leadership is actually creating an effect, a positive effect on inclusivity, on gender equality. So it's like, yes, you can have as many ERGs as possible. You can have all the applications and technologies, but you really need to make sure that you're getting your ROI on it and you're making an impact out of it.
Great.
I love that.
I like how you tied that together. It's really great, and it actually leads into the next question. ERGs have become a norm in organizations, and you gave a great example of how technology can help facilitate the efforts of those groups. What other types of technologies or strategies can you suggest for leveraging the ERGs in the inclusivity and diversity of women?
Am I allowed to advertise for my own company right now?
I was gonna say your company.
Well, so, for those of you that don't know Benevity, we have about 1,000 companies that use our software platform to manage their corporate giving and volunteering and community investment programs. But actually, in the last couple of years, we saw a need in this exact area with ERGs, with our clients, particularly since about 2020. The amount of ERGs and their prominence at companies has really taken off, but it's been an area that really hasn't been invested in from a technology perspective to help them actually manage it and drive the ROI and do the things that Christine was talking about. And so we actually decided to just develop a product, even though it wasn't exactly in the space that we're in, to help solve this for some of our clients. So it's called Benevity Affinity Groups. But as was said earlier, like, technology isn't a silver bullet, right? It's nice because people who run these ERGs are typically doing it out of passion and love and off of the side of their desks. And so having technology to enable them to be more efficient and effective is great, but they also need all of the things that you mentioned around exec sponsorship. They need budget, like they need, recognition and support in the organization to make it work. Technology is just, one small piece.
Great. So let's talk a little bit more about how to embed some of these strategies into the corporate DNA. We know that diversity inclusivity goes beyond implementing an effort. It needs to be part of what we do and ingrained in our business. So I will open this up to the three of you. What strategies do you employ to ingrain diversity inclusivity into your everyday corporate practices?
Yeah, I can go. So we have two sides of this. So we obviously have our employee side, and then we have our contractor side. And one of the things that we do now is that we ask people to self-identify. And what people don't realize is when you ask people to self-identify, there's a lot of traumas that come to that, especially in the Indigenous world. It's scary to self-identify because you don't know if you're going to lose your job because you've self-identified as being a person of color or person of Indigenous, or you might be a transgender person. And you automatically think, okay, I'm going to maybe be classified as lose my job because I've self-identified. So it's easier just to check the box no, And so at Virtual Grooves, one of the things that we've done is we've really worked on our internal platform where we encourage the self-identification. And 3-4 years ago, we were maybe 10% of people self-identifying, where now it's like 80-90% are self-identifying because they understand our impact. So I think it's being able to explain and understand and show them and share with them the impact and the measures and everything that you need to do to be able to create that. Because if we're not creating impact, then who is it? And so we needed to really, really encourage and create that confidence in the contractors, including the employees, to be okay with that. And so I think that's one of the things that we've done. And I don't know if you've looked around, but we have these signs up which shows our values and our mission and visions now. And they did just get put up today or yesterday, but I mean, but they, everybody in the company knows because we host events now where we're trying to teach them about it. And we had everybody be a part of our values and our mission in our workshops. And it really did help with bringing the inclusivity into the workplace. And so I think even just that little change for us has created a massive change for us.
Well, I love how you've just woven it into the fabric of your environment. And I think looking at your website, it's the same message. This is what you stand for. This is what we want to promote in our company. Come join us. So that's a great example. Kelly, Christine, anything to add to that?
Sure. So maybe I'll just start with the diversity piece, because diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, they're all actually very different things. They're not just one thing. And diversity's arguably the easiest piece because it's metrics on a page, but still most companies don't do it well, and so I like to talk about it. But I think, you're trying to create a diverse company to start. You have to start with the senior leadership team. I think people want to look up in companies and see people that look like them, that they can relate to. I think that people choose companies based on the faces they see on the website, right? And so if you start there, I think just naturally you tend to end up with more diversity throughout. Now, the problem is that when most companies go to hire a senior leadership role, they're looking for someone with a proven track record who's been there and done that before. And so by definition, to get more diverse candidates into these roles, we have to give a chance to somebody who hasn't actually done it before, right? Which means we can't recruit our way out of this problem, because at some point, someone has to give the person their first chance, right? That's why I'm sitting up here as CEO, and I said I'd never be a CEO, right? But, and so we have to actually do the hard work, which is you have to put your time into developing people to get them ready for the roles. Then you have to promote them and convince your investors and all of the things that go with promoting someone to an exec role. Then you have to support the hell out of them so that they succeed, right? We have to do all of those things. And so at Benevity specifically, we have a 9-person exec team, 6 of us are women, and 3 of the other women I've promoted from within the last 3 years that I've been the CEO. Like, we have a woman chief technology officer. That might be more rare in tech than a woman CEO. I'm not sure if you yeah.
Very good.
Thank you. and so 3 of them were promoted, 2 I hired outside. And it's got to be a mix, but it's something that, like, we can't just recruit our way out of it, right? You've got to develop people and give them a chance.
Yeah, and just like from, it's more of like a personal story, and I'll tell you, like I said, I wrote a lot of notes. But personal story is, I remembered when I was at another company, it was a really big company, and we were lucky enough that every quarter, the CEO, president, some of the board members would come, and like VP of cloud or VP of, whatever it was, endpoints, would come in and they would talk about, the earnings, what the situation was like for the company. And then, every quarter it was like a man in there in a suit and like talking. But then I remember one day, one of the quarters, and it was VP of cloud actually, because cloud was like still pretty new. And she got up there and I was like, oh my gosh, she's wearing heels. And then, oh my gosh, she's like me, she's a woman. And oh my gosh, I understand everything that she's saying. And she's like on stage. This is amazing. And I don't know, it's like, that's why representation matters. Like, it's such a cliche, but it really is, because when I was at a different company, and that's when I started wanting to do like more networking and everything. And then when I joined WIT, I was like, I felt that my voice was being heard. I felt like I was kind of seen because there were people that I could relate to. And it was just such a good sisterhood. And so I feel like, yes, we definitely need more women in that, the higher role. And I know there's something called like, I think it's called the frozen middle. And, that's why, like, if you watch, I just started playing golf. So it's like, you watch golf, it's like, oh my gosh, it's okay, Tiger Woods is winning again, Tiger Woods is winning again. And then it's
Not
like
these days.
football. Yeah, but that's good, right? So then it's like football, it's like, oh, it's Tom Brady, it's Tom Brady. But then now, just like, finally, we have this new generation. So exactly like what you said, it's like, when you're doing training and when you're doing hiring, like, yes, we already know that that person's a high achiever. We know there's going to be something for her, but what about like succession plans? Like, who else can we develop? Like, identify those people who can be qualified, who has that potential, and then give that training to them. And I think that's more like inclusive.
Absolutely. That's a great example. Thank you. So we've talked about several strategies to ingrain diversity and inclusivity into the workplace, and I can't believe I haven't stumbled over inclusivity, because I think I've said it about 100 times now. But let's talk about how we measure success and impact. How do we evaluate the effectiveness of our inclusivity strategies? And specifically, let's talk a little bit about accountability and transparency. So again, I will open it up to the 3 of you. How do accountability and transparency serve as cornerstones for advocating gender equity? And a second part of that, what measures should be taken to ensure these principles are effectively implemented?
We're all looking at each other. It's a tough question.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, I don't know if this is a kind of answers the question, but like from an accountability and transparency perspective, like one thing we do in our business is every year we do a pay equity analysis, but last year we did a really deep pay equity analysis, and we looked at a number of factors, including like gender, visible minorities. We looked at tenure, so you're not getting paid less just because you happen to be around the company earlier than the person who got hired yesterday. And we actually used the majority of our budget that we had for salary increases last year to close those gaps. And we were very vocal about it as a company, that it was like we saw some things across all of these different metrics that we didn't like, and we were actually going to prioritize closing gaps for those people this year before we actually gave people sort of a standard merit or an inflationary increase. So that's just one example of something that we did fairly recently.
And how did your associates react to that? What was the feedback you received for being so transparent and open?
Yeah, I mean, so transparency can be kind of a double-edged sword sometimes. Benevity as a company, when I showed up 5.5 years ago, I couldn't believe how transparent we were, and I think we've continued to get even more transparent. And I think for the most part, that's really good, and people appreciate it. But there are some days where I want to go, cry into a pillow, because there's the other side of that. So I think in that one, in particular, I think generally because we just communicated so openly, like this is what we're doing, this is why, people were pretty supportive. But the flip side of that is other people are hurting because of inflation and interest rates and all of these other things. So there's a bit of what about me? But we're like, well, we can't take care of all of us together until we sort of take care of these specific issues first. So.
Yeah, and well, I can't speak, for the current company that I'm working for now, but from a women in technology perspective, I know that this is always a topic that we mention, and it's we Women in Technology organization, tries to really uplift and empower the women who are in their careers to be able to voice out their opinions and the sensitive issues, right? So, I have a milestone birthday this year, and there's going to be physical changes probably. But what I would hope is that HR, there's women involved in creating those policies, because I don't know who else could create those policies, right? And so what we always say to women in technology is be aware of not only your own situation, but your surrounding environment, because that's the way that you can voice out. And another thing that I think companies should do too is we talk about ERGs, and I mean, how many of you have gotten a survey of we're surveying how you guys really like our company, and you're like, who is looking at this? It's it's anonymous, and you're like, is it really anonymous? So
It is.
so it's just, we want to make sure that those ERGs are a safe place, especially when you say, when you mentioned, Bobby, that it's when you have to self-identify, sometimes there's trauma to it. So it's when you're trying to share a story, maybe in an ERG meeting or something, you want it to be a safe place, and make sure that there's honesty and respectfulness in there too. So anyway, I don't know what my point was. I think my point is really to just make sure that you're being really aware of currently where you are in your career, your situation, where you would like to be, and then that roadmap of where you would like to be, that you can voice it out honestly.
Yeah, I mean, we're still in startup mode, and so we have a lot to learn. We're still trying to figure a lot of it out, and we're doing it on what we could say is like a shoestring budget, right? Because we're still a startup. Last year or the year before, we had given everybody the COLA, the cost of living adjustments, and it was so difficult at the same time because you have to kind of dig into your budget to do it, where at the same time you wanted to make sure that your investors understood. And you know, it's such a hard learning experience to listen to the two of you explain, you know, because both of you are from companies that are much larger than us. It's such a learning experience to hear that. So I appreciate that because my brain's kind of ticking right now on some things that we could probably do better. So it's amazing.
Great. Thank you for
We can
sharing.
all always do better, just to
No.
be clear.
Absolutely. So let's open it up to the audience for any questions that you all might have for our panel.
Oh.
I feel like this is fantastic. Really enjoyed each one of you sharing your stories and, you know, some of the really impactful things that you're doing now in your organizations. Preaching to the choir here, I think we all are aligned, you know, with wanting greater diversity, inclusivity, and equity in the workplace. However, in your careers, have you been in a place where that's not necessarily what everyone wants? And how do you approach that? If you are the minority, the one voice in a room of executives who the question is, well, how will this impact my earnings per, you know, my earnings per share? What's the bottom line ultimately? And I'm just curious to hear from each or any one of you kind of what some of your more impactful discussions have been with that audience.
One of you go.
You stumped the
You're all
panel.
thinking.
It's a great question.
And just to clarify, it was our experience with maybe a board or leadership saying we don't want not saying, but
Persuading perhaps investors or board or a team to see the value in investing in diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah.
well, again, I'm not speaking for my company, but from STEM for Her, for example. So it's an organization, and we have to reach out to investors, right? That's how we survive, is our sponsors and investors. And it's like, okay, you want me to invest in you. There's already Girls Who Code, there's already Girls Inc., there's already this and this and this, and then why do you want us to invest in you? And it's like, yes, I feel like they're already, is the word inundated or with the word diversity and inclusion, and they're trying so hard to like understand all the different parts. But at least for us in STEM for Her, it's, you know, our mission is very specific, and we're saying that we are trying to empower young girls and young women in the field of STEM, specifically in underrepresented communities. Those are like Title I. Title I is more food insecurity. Title Hope, they're homeless. So I think the more transparent we are with where their money will go, and then, you know, again, the apps with the ROI and the metrics help. I don't know if that even answered your question, but.
Taking it to the I'll try to answer it like from a corporate boardroom type setting. I think how I would address that, so there actually is a lot of data out there. You shared some of it at the start, actually, about, you know, diverse companies with diverse teams, and actually even companies with women CEOs. They tend to overachieve on pretty much every metric, from, you know, growth to earnings per share to employee engagement. So there's lots of data out there. I would probably approach a discussion like that with, you know, some of that data, and also the, like, if that wasn't enough to convince you, it's just the right thing to do, right?
Yeah.
Is this thing on? We have a question back here.
Thank you for your insights. You kind of started where my question was going to go, but it's about the data. I think a lot of people who are working towards the advancement and acceleration of a more diverse workforce, it's always going back to show me the data. What is the business case? So one of the things that I'm curious about is how as organizations, how can we find some of those data points that we don't have to rely on the, the Deloittes or the McKinseys that say, well, a diverse team is going to perform 3 times, 4 times better. Like, what are some of those metrics internally that companies can take and say, we know that the business, like, we are seeing this internally, and I don't know if that through retention, is it through attraction, is it through satisfied employee, like what tips can you share to help other people who are working on EDI inside the organizations to get some of those measurements that they can go to management and say, here's some of the proof points that you need for the business case?
We're not far enough along for me to really fully answer that. But one thing that I know that we have done at Virtual Gurus is we're really trying to get a little bit more into the data on what are we changing, what are we doing. And one of the things is all of the investors that have invested into Virtual Gurus are impact investors. And so now they're actually reaching out and saying, we need more from you. We need to say, like, we need to know how many people you're hiring. What is the impact you're creating? What is the data? And so we're realizing that this is a huge thing that we're missing the mark on, because we're not doing that, because we've been so focused on scale and growth, where there's so much down here that we haven't been able to focus on. And one of the things that we actually want to start doing is all of the clients that use our service, we want to start providing them actual like ESG and data numbers and impact measurements and like ESG reporting on how they're giving back and saving by using a service and a platform like ours. So we're still somewhat new in figuring that out. And that's something that's kind of on our radar. But I do know that everybody likes the true rags to riches story. And I know now that the impact that we're creating here at Virtual Gurus is because everybody's jumped onto that. Now it's a matter of figuring out what's the data behind that and how can we leverage that to our scale and our growth. And we're still trying to figure that out. And so absolutely would value some of the advice from you ladies on how we could do that too.
I think we have time for 2 more questions. We've got one more at the back and then one more at the front here.
So my question would be, you talked about being authentic, right, with everything you do. So I just wanted to find out, do you have a story where you were inauthentic and how it led you to achieve a goal? Because sometimes I find that we want to be authentic, but sometimes we have sponsors or allies and, people that make us, for example, want to wear jeans when you don't want to, things like that. So is there any story about that, and what was the effect for you?
Of being inauthentic and then
Yes.
getting something out of it?
Yes.
Oh. I don't know. Obviously I'm not from this area. I'm wearing open-toed shoes in Calgary when it's minus 25. And then when the Uber dropped me off, I had to climb over the snow, and just hoping there's no CCTVs anywhere. But I mentioned that story about me trying to fit in, but when I was asked to lead and become president-elect before president for Women in Technology, it's like that imposter syndrome. You're like, why me? Why, I have no idea why you picked me, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think I was inauthentic. I think I was more like, I had so many doubts that not necessarily fake it till you make it, but I was like, am I allowed to say this word? I was like, I'm a badass. I can do this. So it was more like, it was more like me trying, it was another version of me that, thank God I got this opportunity asked of me, because I never thought that I could do it. And now, this is where I am. So it's like, enjoy every step of the process. How can you get to the next step if you're not even enjoying and doing wherever you are to the best of your ability? So I think I was just more giving myself, removing that doubt and just kind of putting in, I didn't think that I was a badass, but I was telling myself I was. So in that case, I guess I was being inauthentic.
You're awesome.
So we have about 22% of the workplace that's set to retire shortly, and that's going to be a lot of women, and a lot of that capital is going to go with them. Based on that story, Kelly, that you told about the two that didn't have mentorship and didn't have folks really advocating for them at the table. When we think about our older women that are still rocking it in the workplace, looking at me and Brenda, what do you think, based on that scenario, Kelly, specifically, like what could be different? Like what could looking at nurturing women who are older in our respective companies and keeping them longer because it's satisfying work, what does that look like in your various organizations?
Oh, that's an amazing question. I'm just going to speak from the heart on this one because I was enjoying the last question, because you would absolutely want to play poker against me, because like you can tell how I'm feeling by the look on my face. So I think I would have trouble being inauthentic. So if I think about myself, as you were saying that question, I was thinking, God, I hope I'm in that group that's going to retire. And then you finished the question, and I was like, oh, shit. And so I'll just give a really personal story here. Like, we can't. We have to change sort of, what am I trying to say? Like the societal norms and how we view what's right or how things should be done, okay? So one thing I've been reading a lot about these days, may age myself here, is like the effect of like hitting menopause on women, how it impacts you at work, and you're losing so much sleep, and all of these things are happening, but it's like it's never talked about in a corporate setting. It's not understood, and it's like a lot of people will just actually opt out because it's so hard and so shitty, right? Yeah. To just sort of continue on like that. Like for myself, I took a 9-week sabbatical last summer. That is very rare for a CEO to do ever. And I was like 100% offline. And my board supported it. You know, it wasn't a fight. I asked, and they gave it to me. And for me, it was like I'd had the last 10 years of having babies. I had both my babies as a CFO, having babies, toddlers, and being a C-suite executive. I basically got to the point where it was like, I either have to take a break or I have to quit to take a break. And unfortunately, that's what most women choose to do. Like they're opting out of leadership roles at an alarming rate because we're all friggin' burned out and we need a break, right? And so I think we have to approach it a bit differently if we want to keep, you know, people like us in companies, right? And it's just like there can't just be one standard and one way of doing things. There has to be a different way of doing things. And I know I myself am really open to that. I've done it myself. I took that leap and sort of risked what reputational damage and stuff it might cause by me being offline and maybe not caring about the business for 9 weeks. But I came back like full of energy and sort of ready to rock it. And if I hadn't done that, I probably still wouldn't be sitting here. So I think we just have to be more willing to sort of talk about the issues that are unique to women, because I think many of us would actually like to stay around for a while.
Yeah, and so one of my friend's husband, he has a small company as well, and he's like, oh, I don't know, is she gonna come back from maternity leave, blah, blah, blah. And then later on, it was like, what about this other lady? She is just coming back because now she's an empty nester. And it's like, are you kidding me? It's like, this woman bore 2 kids out of her body, raised them, fed them, taught them characteristics, and then had to clean, blah, 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 blah. And then now you're thinking she can't be responsible for doing, your work. And then the empty nester, it's like she had to, oh my gosh, teenage years, high school years, where you're worrying about, you're gonna teach them how to drive, you're gonna teach them, all the values, and then you're gonna say that she cannot handle an email. So I think it's just like what you said, it's society. It's like we're different now. We're living longer, we're exercising more, there's so many things that are in our capacity and resources that we can do it. We're badasses.
I'm just trying to think about how I could talk my board into letting me to take 9 weeks off.
We'll take that offline after.
Yeah.
Well, I
yeah.
love the message of talking about things that you don't traditionally talk about. You know, we were raised in our careers to not be women,
Yeah.
but to be reflective of, you know, more of the masculine qualities in the workplace. And I think over time we've proven that that doesn't have to be our strategy. It doesn't have to be the way it is. As Kelly mentioned, we strive for the best. We perform, we overperform in many areas. So it's really being proud of who we are and what makes us great, what makes us badasses, and being willing to talk about that in the work setting, which is something we haven't done in the past. And that's something I think we can all do to contribute. Do we have any other questions, Heather? Or we have one more question? I think.
Okay, we'll do one more, but only because I'm feeling like I'm in a giving mood.
Hello. I've really enjoyed tonight. This has been amazing. I would like to identify as old. I am one of those persons who just turned the milestone, and I do feel ageism is very prevalent in the workforce. But I do also feel that women in technology could also give back to all those younger girls, young women who are working their way up, just from millennials, but all the way into the 40s and 50s, because that is where the true benefit that we can give them back is. The experience that we've had, the hardships that we've had, how to get through a lot of this. So I would love to know if there are any mentorships from females to help with that ageism growing older.
May I take this? So Women in Technology, the organization that I'm part of, it's for women who are either entering the tech world arena or are in the middle of their career, and maybe they want to pivot from traditional to maybe something in a cloud or AI. And then women who are wanting to give back, almost retiring, etc. So there is a lot of mentorship there. I could tell you that if you can't tell, I love talking. And in the networking sessions that we have, I speak to girls who are like, I don't even know if they're Gen Z now, but they're like in their 20s. So I don't know if that's Gen Z or millennial. They just started their career. And then you have those that are like 27, 30, and then on. And I speak to each and every single one of them. And I have my group of friends. We go out after networking events. I call them my WIT Next Gen. But I am really impressed. Our future is really bright. I'm impressed. Some of them are talking about they want to go to grad school, and then they negotiated their tuition. I was like, what? When I started, I didn't even negotiate my rate, like for my work, and they're negotiating tuition, and they're trying to get colleges to kind of, fight with one another. I'm like, wow, this is great, 'cause this is our future. And then I also love I think this is, at least for me, it's like a newer term, relevant term, intergenerational relationships. And I love it because I'm telling them what I went through, and so then they can kind of circle around it. But then they have new things that they're teaching me as well. So I feel like if you can go out there and just find any type of networking organization, doesn't have to be geared towards technology, but any type, because you tend to create those relationships, you nurture those relationships that you otherwise may have not known from before, and you learn so much from them.
I do know that there's a group here in Calgary, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's Intergen They have a 70s, over 70. They have, like, you know how they have the top under 40, they have the top under 70 or the top over 70 awards. You might want to look up them as well, because they actually have a whole community. And Sandy Gilbert, they're doing some amazing things, but you might want to also look them up too.
Well, great. So as we bring this insightful panel to a close, I want to say I'm very inspired by the knowledge and experience that you shared with us today. And I encourage each and every one of you to bring some of these strategies back into your workplace. Even the smallest things we do, again, can have a ripple effect within and without. So having said that, I'd really like to hand it back over to Heather for some closing words.
Thank you, Debbie. Whew, what a great panel. Oh my gosh, it was fantastic. I just want to say a couple of things. One, my very own Chief People Officer, Debbie Fulton, thank you for coming up from Texas to brave the snow to moderate this panel. Huge shout out to Bobby Reset. Obviously, this event would not have been possible, not only just from her, but her entire team. We've been meeting for over a month every single day trying to figure out how we're going to, produce this event. And without her space, this really wouldn't have been possible. And then, of course, the lovely Christine. I participated with her in a couple of STEM for Her events down in Washington, D.C. She's honestly been a true gem and an inspiration to myself. So lovely to have you here. And of course, Kelly, thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate you, and sorry for some of the tough questions we put in place. And yes, thank you. Yeah. And of course, in behind me, shameless plug. So one of the biggest reasons why we wanted to do this event is not because we wanted to come up here and talk about technology. We could talk about that all day long. I really wanted to showcase for you guys successful women in the industry that would inspire you. But then I thought, let's go one more level higher. Let's partner with some sponsors that offer continued education through your lifetime with that company, that support women in technology. Every single sponsor on this banner back here, Sony, Diversified, Virtual Gurus, Crestron, Logitech, and Microsoft Teams, and obviously Samsung. I work with them on a daily basis, and they are countlessly supporting my efforts in this. So one of the things that I'm asking everybody here to do today, if you would like to win something, Bow Valley College has graciously donated a $1,000 golf package in June. But what you need to do for that is we have sponsor rooms set up. 15-minute little sessions. You can go in, be as casual as you want, pop in. We've got Crestron over here on the top floor. We've got Amanda. Where's Amanda? Where's Amanda? Amanda's over there in the corner. She's going to tell you what it's like being a woman working at Crestron. And of course, we've got Logitech just one floor below us here. Our virtual guru peeps are going to help us figure out how to get there. We're asking that you do use the elevator. Yes, we don't want any more people locked in the stairwell. And then, and then we've got Lynette, who I actually worked with 15 years ago with Logitech now. So she's got a room downstairs as well. Please go visit her. We really encourage that. And there's one more thing I just want to say. This person doesn't know I'm doing this, and they're probably not going to be super thrilled because they're here. Sandy McIsaac. Can you stand up? She gave me my start. Sorry. I think I was like 21, and she goes, Heather, what are you doing with your life? And I'm like, I don't know, hanging out. And I'm telling you, when she got me my first job, I didn't know the difference between HDMI cable or VGA cable. Like, I knew nothing. And I've grown because of her, and I've been waiting this long to give this back to her. So thank you so much. All right. Happy International Women's Day. Thank you, everybody, very much for coming. Thank you, everyone who participated online. We really appreciate you.